Hello and welcome to the Xenogenesis podcast. In this episode, episode 61, we're covering chapters 7 and 8 from part 2 Exile of book 3 Imago of the Xenogenesis trilogy by Octavia E. Butler. I am Richard Acton and I'm joined in the warm and sweaty environs of this jungle, as usual, by my co-host.
Michael Glinka. Hi everyone. To be fair, I was just thinking it'd be nice and, to go to the tropics, but I thought I probably would survive one day and then after this would be like, nope, I want to go back to the nice, peaceful and dry Scotland. Or rather, not dry, what I'm talking about, it rains pretty much 80% of the year in here, but still, pretty moderate climate, I would say, Scotland.
Yeah, 40 degrees and 80 plus humidity is yeah. That's not really great weather for doing much other than sweating.
You don't know whether it's the sweat or is it just moisture in the air collecting on you. Just all of it, accumulation of everything. Love it.
So, should we jump straight into your predictions for chapter 7?
Sure, absolutely. So, chapter 7 prediction. I was mind blown by the fact that, to be fair, I was mind blown by the fact that there were still fertile humans that went undetected from Oankali, right? Actually pure humans. The fact that there was somebody who survived, the whole war, and then they managed to, generate, live there in generations to make children. And obviously that's a piece of a pie that neither Jodhas or Oankali would be able to pass on, right? So it's a big thing, and obviously I thought that this will lead to a big issue. This is more of a long-term prediction, that the fact that there's a whole village of humans. What do we do? What do you do to protect one? Jodhas obviously wants to pair up with someone, otherwise it will be sent to the ship. And two, if it is revealed, those humans will not be left alone. It's going to be a mayhem, and it's going to be either Mars or mixed with the Oankali options, right? So yeah, I thought that for the long-term prediction that's what's going to be happening. This whole conundrum, what to do. In terms of the chapter 7, I thought that obviously Jodhas will not be able to maintain hiding from them for too long. It's too tempting to leave two pure, I would say, humans untouched, and it will need to contact them, because otherwise, Oankali will eventually find them out. So it's a matter of time. It needs to make the steps.
Yeah. I think that was borne out, right? It didn't stay away from them for long.
No, it didn't stay far away from them in the first place. So,
No.
So it's just a matter of perspective. Yeah, it was just a matter of time. But yeah, it was just it's pretty crazy that the fact. To be fair, hiding in the mountains is usually where humans probably would survive, somewhere deep in mountains and some hidden forests with some, I don't know, but if any apocalypse took place on Earth at the moment, but I don't know, it just sounds plausible in for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. This sort of isolated village in the high mountains that's kind of evaded the Oankali for a little while. Yeah, makes sense. Although they do, I suppose, have orbital information, so they might have spotted it from space if it was.
If there was, depends on how you.
A small village, probably not, but yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking, if it was a city, right? Obviously, at night and from the outer space, you could probably see the lights, right?
In the absence of substantial other lights, then a few large fires would probably be enough to light you up.
But I just thought would they? If a forest fire maybe, but Not, I mean, depends on how high are we talking about, like what altitude we're talking about here. But the Oankali don't use even, like, don't really have like this like scanning systems in any.
I mean, we don't know if there's any orbital surveillance going on, right? We know they have the ships.
Yeah.
We don't know if they have any satellites, right? And the main ship is like out by the moon, so that's
I just imagine
a little
like
way off. But
I just imagine their satellites would be like this giant eyeball just staring nonstop. And just like, you know, just a few of the Oankali, the caterpillar-like Oankali just walking around, like, you know, attached to its surface, just cleaning it, making sure it's moisturized.
Yeah, the Oankali satellite would be like probably just a special species of Oankali, right? That's just like floating around there in space, looking down and relaying what it finds. So yeah,
show me what you got. Right. Let's get to the chapter 7 summary.
Sure.
So as Thomas and Jesusa were trying to make their way back home, hoping that they lost Jodhas, our boy Ooloi kept following them. As Jodhas followed them, its thought wandered around what may happen if the Oankali would find about the human village and whether Jodhas would be allowed to mate with Jesus and Thomas. After 4 days of, you know, basically stalking, Jodhas couldn't take it anymore. It had to join them. The siblings didn't catch any fish that night, so Jodhas collected some food and wove a basket to bring them as an offering.
Yeah, so more of the like stalkery behavior, right? Just sort of, you know, an anonymous surprise, unsolicited gift, just, you know, showing up.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah. Don't use Jodhas as a means of looking at behavior, how to date someone. It's really not good behavior. No. But yeah, Jesusa was asleep while Thomas was lying awake, although due to his condition could not see Jodhas until the Ooloi was basically beside him. Initially, Thomas didn't recognize Jodhas because he was not a scaly humanoid pangolin anymore, but looked more like Thomas himself without all the tumors. The moment Jodhas said its name, Thomas was not afraid anymore and asked if Jodhas will heal him.
Yeah, that's I think we commented at the end of the last one that it would be a bit weird now that Jodhas is no longer a pangolin with a face.
Basically, yeah. And now it literally looks like Thomas without the, you know, it's like not good.
Yeah, as if the kind of weird creepiness wasn't
weird enough.
Yeah, now we've got a yourself waking yourself up in the middle of the night. Which
God, that's just like basically paralysis nightmares. You know, like when you wake up and you can't move. Basically, just that's how I imagine it going.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Thomas was not afraid and asked if Jodhas will heal him. I will, I said. Completely. He closed his eye, trusting himself to me in a way that made it hard for me to withdraw from him and turn to attend to Jesusa. But just as Jodhas turned around, the only thing it saw was Jesusa pointing a gun towards him. Just as Jodhas said its name, the gun shot and the bullet pierced one of its hearts. It tried everything it could to prevent stinging Jesusa in self-defense, so it grabbed the gun she was holding and destroyed it, basically just lobbing it across the clearing they were sleeping and completely breaking the pieces. It then grabbed her and held her until she calmed down, or rather, she calmed down when she saw that any damage she was doing while she was biting it was almost instantly healed. She then realized that Jodhas was also trying to heal its heart. Although our Ooloi could heal, it couldn't cut off the pain, so it must have been pretty painful for it to deal with while trying to restrain her.
Yeah, so they're pretty scarily capable, right? You kind of because we get this from mostly Jodhas's perspective, it doesn't feel quite as like supernaturally scary, right?
Yeah.
But from the outside view, this would be, you shot this guy through the chest, he grabs your gun, throws it so hard against the tree that it splits into pieces, and it's still like holding on to you and restraining you. This This is a scary opponent.
You bite it and it's just basically healing itself as you literally do it, and it's like
regenerating on the fly. Yeah, that's This is a very intimidating adversary.
Supernaturally strong, supernaturally healing being that was basically stalking you all this time.
Yep.
That basically wants to bang with you. I mean, that sounds creepy as hell and horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the sort of like horror aspects of these books are actually like they're fairly strong, but you don't really feel them that much because for the most part your perspective is in the people who are being horrifying rather than being horrified.
Yes.
So it's,
I honestly doing this, what we're doing in this podcast, going it by every chapters or a few chapters every episode. When I read it, and I have to think, I was like, yeah, that's horrifying as fuck. Like I would not wish to be in the position that some of the characters have then encountered Oankali to be like it's just scary as hell.
Yeah, no joke.
So yeah,
Jesus has kind of given up because this apparently a man is clearly not.
No, it's like not giving up, and it's not going to let go of her. So yeah, Jesus asked about Thomas. Why wasn't he waking up? So Jodhas told her that the man was drugged so that it could heal him. She shouted that she didn't, they don't need Jodhas' healing. But now she was under Jodhas' effect, right? The Ooloi's pheromones were started working their magic, and it seems that she was starting having issues resisting it. Jesus' need to her Jodhas was dramatically being reduced. Here's a bit from the book. We truly don't want your healing, she repeated. Though, I'm sorry I shot you. She sat still, looking down at me. You look like Thomas, You look the way he should look. You could be our brother or perhaps our sister. Yeah, Jodhas was neither, but it's creepy as hell nonetheless.
Yeah, I like the turnaround is also like scarily fast, right? You go from trying to kill this guy to
I'm really sorry.
Sorry, I shot you.
Yeah,
and you look like my brother.
That's the thing. Like I think that the way that Jodhas looked like her brother or sister, that the familiarity plus the pheromones, where it's already a deadly combo to that was affecting the the perspective, not a fun position to be. The Ooloi asked why did they run away, and of course it was about the fertile village. The humans didn't want to be found, and so the siblings had to escape to prevent others being located by the Oankali. Jodhas said it knew, but not because it immediately found it after touching them, but because it was stalking the siblings. And obviously that outraged Jesus.
Yeah.
Jodhas tried to explain it that it needed to find out more about them because it was the first time for it to discover pure humans with such a genetic defect. It had been more than a century, in fact. But yeah.
There was a quote here from Jodhas. It's like, when you know us better, you may understand that it was as though you were dragging me by several ropes. The question wasn't whether I would follow you, but how long I could follow you before I joined you again. Which, again, with the sort of creep factor is...
Police already riding towards him, just like, yep. 101 stalking behavior. But when you're in like Jodhas's head, though, it has that it's compelling for it, right? It has all of these questions that it needs to answer. It has all of these needs that it needs to fulfill. So it's like obviously this is the thing that I need to do. Yes, from Jodhas's perspective, it's like it can't resist it, right? Because one, it's an Ooloi. It's an Oankali, so it has this like need to understand the genetical differences of what's happening to those siblings, and two, it's an Ooloi, meaning that also it wants to make a family, and it's a first construct. It's like the all perspectives so far make sense from Jodhas's perspective, but from an outsider,
yeah, terrifying,
fucking scary. So Jesus asked, what will Jodhas do now? What's its plan? What is its plan? It wanted to talk to the siblings, but first start with Jesus. Initially, the conversation strayed onto the body tentacles and the fact that Jodhas had so little, whereas the Oankali had so many more. Jodhas pulled Jesus closer to it, and the sexual tension started rising. And here's a bit of a spicy part from the paragraph from the book. I put her head on my shoulder so I could reach her with both head and body tentacles. She let me position her, then lay relaxed and alert against me. I eased her weariness, but did not let her become drowsy. She was younger than I had thought. She had never had a mate in the human way. Now she would never would. I felt as though I could absorb her into myself, and yet she seemed too far away. If I could just bring her closer, touch her with more sensory tentacles, touch her with what I did not yet possess. I will skip the rest for people if of this era enjoy this arousing section for themselves. If you read the chapter, but after a bit of a physical touch and teasing, when Jodhas retracted himself from her against her desires, it promised that there's more coming in future. I mean, let's have a stop it here, right? I mean, she was younger than I had thought. I mean, from the modern person's perspective, that's basically you're immediately going to jail, Jodhas. There's no buts. Straight to jail.
I mean, I suppose it depends exactly how old she actually is, and how old. Jodhas is what old? How old is Jodhas at this point?
I think more than 20 something.
I think more than 20. Yeah, so I think it's in its 20s. Although technically still not sexually mature, which is also kind of
weird
in this context. Yeah. So,
but. If she's younger than he had thought, it's still okay. So obviously, historically, if we look at the history, right? Obviously, women from very young ages. I'm talking about medieval times. Obviously, the younger they were, we're talking about 14. When the moment started the first periods, they were considered mature enough to have children, right? And to be, I don't know, if they're from a noble families, they were given off to a noble who would to strengthen out the bonds between the families and type of thing. But how many of them survived? Not that many, because they were too young, still not developed to hold, to survive the pregnancy. So obviously, but nowadays we know that this, it takes a time for both physical and mental development. So that's why we have the minimum ages of, in UK it's 16 for consent and becoming now 18. So I hope if at least from this perspective, that she's not younger than that.
Yeah, I know, although I think there are other complicating factors than just the age of consent in this context, because I don't even know that consent is particularly meaningful here because of the whole. Yeah,
well, yes, that's the other thing. Well, consent in this point is quite a well.
Yeah, and so this is the usual.
Straight to jail.
Octavia really likes to kind of fuck with you on the moral complexities, right? Because the person instigating this isn't even sexually mature yet, but is also older than the young person, and the younger person is surface level appearing to consent to this, but because she's been mind fucked with by all this pheromone stuff, and it's this whole situation is we definitely shouldn't be having to deal with this whole question.
Yeah,
it's nope.
Straight to jail, basically.
Yeah.
But yes, so the original conversation had to take place finally. So the fact that the humans from her village were tormenting themselves, whereas they could live on Mars, probably acclimatized faster because of their original high altitude living. They couldn't stay on Earth, but they could go to Mars. But before that, they would have to be healed from their genetical defects to ensure that the children born on Mars are healthy. But what about them, Jesus and Thomas? Jesus wanted them to stay with it, even though they were siblings, even though they were not married, because obviously Oankali don't believe in such constructs as marriage. It's purely biological for them. Jesusa was horrified that Jodhas could suggest to have children with her own brother, but there were two facts that couldn't be beaten, according to Jodhas. One, the village was already inbreeding so much that everyone was basically related, and that's where the genetical defects originated from. And two, the fact that they were related was actually an advantage because of the compatibility between their tissue is so high that if anything happened to one of them, Jodhas can use the tissue from the other to heal them, to heal the other.
Okay, right. Yes, I mean, the reasoning is sound-ish. Not sure that helps. No.
Yeah, it's just Oankali and their attitude to a relationship. I mean, to be fair, in Oankali families, it's the Ooloi is the stranger, whereas the parents are usually brother and sister. So for Jodhas' perspective, it's like, well, it doesn't matter, right? It's
Yeah, so that's the normal situation from Jodhas' perspective, right? But not so much from the humans, right? Yeah, there's been kind of a slow boil on the whole actual human brother sister incest throughout this story, right? We worked up to it.
Yeah, I mean,
it was okay for the aliens, and now we have some caveats, right? That the population that these two come through have already been doing it of somewhat of their own accord for a few generations out of necessity, and it's happening with an Ooloi, so it's not them actually physically doing it. It's with an intermediary. So it's...
Exactly. But nonetheless, it sounds fucking weird. Sweet Home Alabama is not a way to live. But anyway. The village's gene pool is too small, right? It was too small, and they just couldn't be left alone because sooner or later, they will develop some defect that will lead to a disease, basically wiping them all out. So, and Jodhas mentioned that the Mars is only possible thanks to his brother. It seemed that for Jesusa, siblings are an important thing, and it slightly moved the conversation into Jodhas' favor. The Ooloi couldn't let them go. It was desperate to keep them because it knew that the Oankali would not allow it to find human mates on the ship, but they would definitely not take away mates it made on its own. So, Jodhas had another incentive to make sure that its charms, if you can call it that, work on them. Jesusa knew that her people will fight, but that's nothing for the Oankali. They'll be gassed and apprehended. I mean, I wrote those notes, but it generally said this is what the book said. It was they'll be gassed and then caught, and I'm like, okay.
Yep. Yeah. As soon as any of them found out about the existence of the village, they were just knock out, gas the whole lot, and take hike them off to Mars, or give them the choice, right? They get you can
That's
go to
not
Mars,
really a choice if you gas.
Yeah, but they gas everyone and they say you've got the choice of Mars or sterility on Earth, right? That's the degree of choice that you get.
Yeah. Oof. The fact that there are humans out there, the Oankali will find them eventually. Jodhas could tell that briefly. Jesusa thought that if she killed it now, no one would ever find out. So Jodhas did what it had to do and broke the Oankali promise of not telling anyone the fate of Earth. Jodhas started with telling her that everyone will die and shouted at her when she tried to reject the notion. It then explained what will happen to the planet Earth, that it will be stripped naked, leaving only the core for mining, but that's it. It won't be habitable anymore. The options would be Mars or ships. That shook Jesusa, so Jodhas left her alone with her thoughts and went to get some firewood. The man is the Ooloi is doing just everything proper in the correct way, right? Like stalking, not so consent, sort of raising of sexual tension, and maybe even you can't even use the word consent at this point. And then it's like, actually you have a choice: die here or die on Mars. Like, cool, thanks.
Yeah, yep.
And then just leaving go, I'm gonna get some firewood. I've dropped this heavy ton, sack of bricks on her. She'll be fine.
Yeah, it's like even if your people survive the problem with your like minimum viable population, then the Earth's been being stripped to a bare rock, so there's nothing for them to survive for. So
Yeah.
I'll leave that with you.
Good luck digesting that. Would you like some minty to help with the indigestion afterwards? But yeah, Jesus didn't know what to think. Well.
Yeah. Unsurprising.
Yeah, absolutely not. She told Jodhas that the trip was to keep Thomas alive. He tried to commit suicide because he couldn't bear living with his genetical defect. The whole his body's deterioration. And the fact that it would pass it to its children, right? So. They must attempt by saying it was an accident, because otherwise the village people would just have locked him up. So, Jesus realized that they can't go back now even. They can't even go back now. Because if they did, the village would know that they were the cause of the Oankali finding out about them. And the chapter ends here with Jodhas pulling her towards it and making her lie down together with it, Thomas for a full connection, to start healing, to let her sleep, basically, let the mind drift away from all those things that just happened literally like in the last hours.
Yeah, and that last little bit there, we get that things are not really an awful lot better for them if they go back to the village.
Yeah,
because it seems like Tomas is probably going to commit suicide as soon as he gets Jesus back to the village, because he doesn't want anything to do with this.
Yeah.
And his alternative is being coerced into breeding in an incestuous environment by the people in his village as well.
Yeah.
So it's like the choice is for the human side is not exactly much better than the Oankali side.
It's crazy. This is like basically. It's both of them are in a situation that there is literally no good exit out of it, right? There's one side, Jodhas basically like full on raging boner type of thing that just can't let them go, and then two, if they go to the village, they already have been found out there's a human village that hasn't been affected by the Oankali, that can a fertile village. Like, if any of the resistors found out about that, like, can you imagine what will happen? Like, if the Oankali are like one step too late, the resistor would basically raid the village, take all the women, rape everyone, and then basically, because that's the only way to survive. But then again, I wonder if the resistor villages men will be fertile anyways. That's the other thing. But
that doesn't seem likely to matter to them.
That's the situation. Yes. So
yeah,
they're in a ton of. Basically, they're in big trouble, and there's no really good,
between a rock and a hard place doesn't really cut it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the classic. I think we've become to expect this from Octavia. Nobody has a choice where like there is a good choice and a bad choice. It's always there is a bad choice and there is a
even worse
arguably worse choice. Yeah. But it's kind of a toss up.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't apply Witcher's, Geralt the Witcher, morality here, like, between lesser evil and great evil, I choose none, because there's literally no other choice here, boy. You have to choose one.
Yep. That's, he would not cope well.
Not in this universe.
No.
So yeah, let's get to chapter 8 prediction then, I guess.
Sure.
So, obviously, I thought, okay, at this point, as you said, there's no really choice. So Jodhas, Thomas, and Jesus will not go back to the human village. They have to go back to Nikanj and Jodhas' family, because any other choice is just equally bad. So
yeah, it seems like their probability of survival at any rate is like worse if they go back to their village than if they stick with Jodhas. Plus, Jodhas, smells sexy. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Not great.
A sexy smelling pangolin.
Well, it's not a pangolin anymore.
I know, but
which is he?
But still, that image came to my mind.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Well then, chapter 8. Let's start it. So by the next morning, most of the tumors on Jesus' body disappeared, and the ones on Thomas's looked so much better. They couldn't believe the change of their body. In the happiness, Jesus kissed Jodhas, whereas Thomas conflicted, although wanting to do it didn't make any move, so Jodhas did it for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's the other upside, right? They get healed.
Yeah. Thomas joked that the regeneration caused his beard to start growing, but it always looked like a 5-year-old trying to shear an alpaca, the patches of the beard. I get you, man. But Jodhas was promised him that once he's healed, his beard will be normal as well. Oh, I smiled. I think your beard will grow more evenly when I finish with you, I said. Do you think you will ever do that? He asked. Finish with us? My free head and body tentacles tightened flat to my skin with pleasurable sexual tension. No, I said softly. I don't think so.
Yeah, upside. Symmetrical facial hair.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay. Yeah, Jodhas spent the rest of the day with Jesus and Thomas talking about what was discussed the night before. Then they lay to sleep together again, and the following day they started the journey back to Jodhas' family camp. It seems that Thomas wasn't really concerned about the death of the planet. It will happen long after it's his death, and they can't do anything to prevent it anyway. Which is pretty much true.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So it reminds me of a little anecdote I heard about someone will lecture theatre about like how long it would take the sun to explode. And this guy was like, twitched and stuck his hand up after someone met. Like, sorry, did you say 5 million years? Like, no, 5 billion. Oh, okay, fine. Yeah. It's like, does that really make much difference to you personally?
Yeah, I heard something. I don't know where I hear this from. Or read somewhere that apparently in the Japanese parliament, it's like when someone was visiting, so there's something conversation about like the whole, solar system, sun exploding type of thing, not to be mentioned parliament or Japanese parliament because it can affect the stock in Japan. I'm just like, I'm sorry, what? I mean, like, just thinking about this whole...
If the stock market's based on this, then what does any of it mean?
How long term do you have your plans? Like, wow. I am 10 million years ahead of you in my steps. Like, you haven't even thought about what will happen to your grandchildren. I already know what will happen to the rest of the universe. I'm like, wow, son. I mean, become a chess player at this point. Then it's like before you make a step, you already won like the chess competition with the rest of the universe. Wow. But yeah, I don't know if it's just
inspires confidence in the financial system.
Yes. So yeah, Jodhas kept asking them if they will stay with it, as if, and if they do, they will certainly live past the time of separation, meaning the past stripping of Earth from all the biomass.
It's like, wow, okay, I'm keeping up my pros and cons list here.
So Jodhas, Thomas was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I won't be there. And Jodhas like, yeah, actually, yeah, you will.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
So I suppose the choice between like the bad and worse is looking a little bit more like asymmetrical in favor of like go with the Oankali.
Yeah.
But, it has this whole like Faustian bargain feel to the whole thing.
Yeah. So the chapter ends with the description of their journey and how Jodhas was slowly healing everything in their bodies, especially Thomas's. His tumors vanished and the sight of his eye returned. He couldn't believe how beautiful he was, which earned him a handful of mud thrown at him. But he literally said that, and that's why, he was like, how stop being, a narcissist. On the morning of the 8th day, Jodhas was more tired than usual and realized too late that the flesh under its armpit was itching more than usual. It was beginning its second metamorphosis. And that's where the chapter ends.
Yep. And as always, the timing of those metamorphoses.
Oh, honestly, Octavia, stop. Like, literally, just... oh, the life is good. No, I mean, good. Depending how you look at it. But in general, it was like, they were just traveling, all good and everything. Yeah, just add everything to the mix because, like, it's too peaceful.
It's like least convenient timing possible is always the...
Yeah.
Yeah, good for the dramatic tension and whatnot.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
No, I was thinking throughout this whole section with there's a bit of a parallel to be drawn between the Ooloi and vampires.
Go on.
Right. So they have this whole like creepy compulsion to stalk humans, and they come and they take stuff from you. Like in this case, it's kind of your genetics, and they they want to do this trade. But vampires, it's blood, and this genetics, blood. They have a connection, and then you've got they can turn you, right? They make you into an Oankali, kind of.
Yes.
And then there's this like inexplicable kind of weirdly compelling, bewitching component to them, despite major red flags and other warning signs. In the case of vampires, it's more like sociopathic charm kind of deal.
Yes.
The dangerous man sort of vibe, but the Oankali, it's a bit they're not. They're like weird amorphous tentacle monsters or giant pangolins and stuff. So like you need a bit more than the charm.
I mean, to be fair, it's everybody's kings. Still, just because there are only a few humans, like kings never disappear. Who knows? Maybe someone is into giant pangolins with human face thing. Like,
yep. And of course, vampires, weird sex stuff. Oankali, weird sex stuff. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think this the whole sex thing is probably the biggest factor that affects the whole situation. I mean, other things are just it's always about sex.
Yeah, as most of the if we go down that pros and cons list we're talking about, you're immortal. You well, not quite. You live a long time, right? You'd survive the strip mining of the earth, right? You get all your cancer and weird stuff cured. You get some moderate like super able abilities from super immune system to moderate super strength and all the rest of it. But then like the caveat is the weird sex stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy. Who knew that these books are gonna be like this, eh? Just basically secret, just like this is secretly 50 Shades of Grey.
I mean, I knew.
Yeah, I know you knew, and like this is what I got myself into, just reading an alien version of 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Who said I don't love it?
But yeah, I mean the whole kind of I enjoy a bit of like fun hypothetical ethical philosophy type stuff, and this book was always just like deeply entwined with really weirdly complicated scenarios of that kind.
No,
which,
absolutely.
I enjoy playing around with as a mental exercise. So,
yeah. So I guess let's get to my chapter 9 prediction here, because obviously this is a point where, as we mentioned, Octavia is just obviously throwing logs under their feet. Like, it's just, Jodhas in second metamorphosis should have seen it coming, knowing very well that lady, not only metamorphosis will be thrown there, but I bet there's going to be some gun crazy resistors and who knows, Godzilla coming out of the sea and just, like being pissed off about the whole radioactivity, and I don't know, but basically there's enough nasty things coming towards them that basically they will have to deal with, because it's just too peaceful.
I mean, like, last time it was Gabe messing with the Keen's metamorphosis, and then like the resistors showing up and lighting the house on fire during that whole process, and then them being chased through a forest in a gunfight. So yeah, like that went well last time.
Yep. So here we can have like probably the whole forest will be on fire and just resist just running around chasing people. Who knows? Just all nasty stuff are just coming towards them. All
kinds of chaos to ensue during this metamorphosis. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But yeah, is there anything else?
No, I don't think so. Really, I mean I suppose there's just on the sort of general style. We've been continuing this kind of relatively close first person on Jodhas, right? We have a little bit of, as we've kind of commented and alluded to earlier, sort of unreliable narrator effect of getting things from Jodhas's perspective, which means we don't necessarily immediately perceive the sort of horrific nature of some aspects of this until we, take ourselves out of his perspective and go, I'm not sure about that. Its perspective. And then, but quite dialogue heavy. We get a lot of dialogue.
Yeah, there's a lot of
in these sections.
Yeah, there's a lot of explanation of the situations, and but yeah, the whole first person perspective really sort of initially, when you don't think about it, like, oh yeah, I get it, but then when you sit down and think of Jodhas, what the hell is wrong with you, type of situation.
Yeah. So one of the other reasons I quite like this as a book to do this kind of project in is that kind of reflection, right? Because it, if you speed read this and you don't pay attention to the exterior perspective, then you can come away feeling kind of a lot more sympathetic towards the Oankali, right? And if you take it and reflect on it, then it becomes a much more complicated picture of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I guess that's it for today, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We're Xenothesis. You can find all the places we upload our podcast on xenothesis.com. I was Michael Glinka.
And I was Richard Acton.
Thank you and goodbye.